Hi everyone, it's Sam. Welcome to another bullet journal monthly setup. This time it's for May and I'm choosing to do Mermay, as in mermaids and everything sea life. There is a lot packed into this video because I include painting all my pages, what my setup is and my first weekly spread, as well as that beautiful cover page with the mermaid. I take you through the drawing process, painting and those finishing touches. So let's get started. So we're about to draw the mermaid on a blank page. I'm drawing a 4x4 grid to start with. That helps me create the perfect circle. That'll help me get the proportions right working so small. The halfway line is the brow line. This vertical line is incredibly important because that's the direction I want the head to be looking at. And this is the curved line very near the base of the circle. That's the eye line. The eye line in cartoon characters naturally sits lower than a realistic eye line. Cartoon noses will sit at the base of the circle and the eyes will be drawn either side of that vertical line. The eye that's furthest away from you, in this case on the right looking at it, so that eye will be smaller than the one that's on the left. These are just guidelines really to help you, hence I do a lot of rubbing out so that I just have the faint impression. Usually only I can see it, but I'm drawing them in a 2H pencil so that you can actually see it on the video today. Once I've completed these guidelines, I'll rub them out so they're barely visible and then go over with definite pencil strokes with my mechanical pencil, which is an HB. So here I've popped in a little mouth just below the nose and I'm putting in the shape of the face. Because she's facing what we call a 3/4 view, we will see the angle of the jaw, which usually sits approximately in line with the mouth. So now I'm just popping in where I think the hair should go. I mean, we need the iconic mermaid hair, don't we? And then we'll move on to drawing, or rather outlining, where the body should be. So I draw in a couple of tapered lines going into a waist and then out again for the hips. Then after that you're sort of drawing figure S's, which will be for the mermaid's tail. Remember, if you work with a 2H pencil, you can block in quite roughly where you think things should go. Then it's a case of trial and error. Because 2H is so easy to rub out, that makes this process really easy, and you can keep rubbing it out until you get it to look the way you want to. So once I have a rough version of my mermaid, I'm now going in with my mechanical pencil with a 0.5mm nib, so it's very fine, and we'll start blocking in some definite lines. I have mentioned in previous videos the importance of line weight, such as when you're doing the eyelashes or under the chin. The thicker lines suggest shadow. She's really starting to take shape now and has a little bit of character. Because of those guidelines, you can relax and start putting in those personal touches that makes your character real to you, such as the hair or the shape of the face. So now I'm just outlining the shape of the tail and then the tail fin itself, which is one of my most favourite parts. And then this is a little bit of trial and error where I'm trying to work out where to place the arm, and as you'll see I erase that and decide to move it farther out to the side. This is because I felt the arm kind of cut the tail in half when you looked at it, so this was my solution. I'm now going to erase all the excess lines. My Tombow eraser has a really sort of solid nib, so it's particularly good at erasing any stubborn lines. And then I'll go over the definite lines with my mechanical pencil. Next we're going to go on to drawing those fish scales. It's a scalloped edge that I do for fish scales, and I just repeat it over and over. A scalloped edge is basically a row of semicircles joined together. I make them smaller and smaller as I go down the tail, and then those beautiful wavy lines for the actual fin of the tail that's so characteristic in mermaids. So now I'm going to be drawing in elements that will make up the background. I'm using my 2H pencil again because I want lighter lines so that the mermaid still stands out. I draw long wavy lines for one kind of seaweed, and then these little kelp seaweed type illustrations, which kelp seaweed have pods and little leaves that come off those pods, and I just thought the variety would look really nice and interesting. This is a school of fish because I wanted my mermaid interacting with her sea friends, so I drew a few sort of cute, simple illustrations for fish, similar to those that you would do at school, really, very simple. And here's my lettering. Instead of writing May 2021, I wrote Mer May. You can tell I'm really excited about this theme. And as I've mentioned, I am going to do mermaid themed weekly spreads throughout May until it comes to the June Plan With Me video, which will be the end of May. So we should have a whole series of mermaid themed weekly spreads for bullet journals, which I really hope you'll tune in for and enjoy. So this is my calendar that I decided to, this is the smallest calendar I've ever done in my bullet journal. And it's just basically this little feature in the corner covered in barnacles and shells and seaweed on the seabed. And here is a cute seahorse style little creature. I mean, it really does look like a, I don't know, has a little mohawk and looks a bit punky or like a lizard. It was just a fantasy little creature I was having fun with. I mean, you can draw whatever you like, really, in your own bullet journal. It's nice to have a bit of fun. Having said that, I think I'm going to be doing a seahorse with my mermaid for my next week's spread, so do look out for that. So now we're on to the painting stage. I had a bit of cerulean paint and white and mixed a bit of sap green, then created a very watery mixture and used my large square brush to lightly dab this watery paint all over the background of my cover page. I left clear where I wanted the mermaid, the fishes, etc. to still stand out as white against this blue background because they'll be coloured in different colours. So I've thoroughly dried it, put the clips on because they'll keep that page nice and flat. I've now added some nice blue, Prussian blue and cerulean blue in fact, mixed them to create a deeper blue. And I am using this paint colour really to deepen the tones where I need it to. So it's sort of like negative space painting, where I'm doing either side of a seaweed so that the seaweed is suggested by where I haven't painted, and you can see that pale colour come through. It's a lovely technique. I really do use it an awful lot. So I continue to add that deeper blue around my mermaid and the fish and the lettering so that it makes her stand out even more. So with so much paint on the page, we need to dry that thoroughly before we can go on to the next stage. So now we come to the stage where we're painting the flesh tones. I mixed scarlet, a yellow ochre and white to create a light peach, then add a touch more scarlet to make a darker peach. These two tones are what I use to create the shadows on the base of the lighter colour peach, which is what I'm putting down first. I use a fine brush for this because at the end of the day this illustration is very small. If you're interested in how I draw little cartoon characters and paint them with flesh tones, I do have a couple of videos like the one linked above for you to have a look at. I even draw them at different angles, face on or 3/4 view like this particular mermaid. So do take a look at those if you're interested. Once that light peach layer has been put on, I can dry the mermaid thoroughly and mix up a dark, which I use a blue, French ultramarine and burnt umber to create my dark. I use this dark for the eyelashes and to define the eyes. Now I'm mixing up a dark burnt orange for the hair and for the fish scales. I use some of the flesh colour paint that I have and add some orange to it. It creates this muted burnt orange colour. I use this for the base layer of the hair. Then I go in with stronger, brighter orange to add and mix and blend the two tones together to create the two-tone look I'm after. So I add the brighter orange as highlights and to the ends of the hair, like on that curl. However, once it had finished drying, I felt it was still lacking something, so I pulled out these watercolour paints, metallic paints rather, having never really used them much before, and I primarily used the gold colour, which is near the bottom of the video, and the copper colour, which is one of the ones in the middle, and place those on the crown and different parts of the hair. Unfortunately, it doesn't really show on the video very well because it's an overhead camera, but you'll have to take my word for it that the mica really glistens and glints when you turn the page, which I love. So I added some yellow to that orangey mix and put some of that on the mermaid's tail and added a little bit more of the metallic all over and dried the whole page. So I'm just going to start working on the background now. I added a dark green and cerulean and the deep Prussian blue to create this beautiful bluey green. I'm using my finest brush to draw in those pods of the kelp seaweed. Now the trick here is to create a delicate balance with what you want to have stand out in your painting and what you want to have as your background. So you'll see that I'll use my paintbrushes to sort of suggest the seaweed and then maybe blend it out a little bit so that the suggestion is there, but it doesn't overpower the mermaid and the creatures that are in the foreground. That's really a good technique to think about. And you can see how effective it is because even the lettering doesn't overpower the mermaid and the main elements that you really want to focus on, but you can still see that there's something going on in the background, even if you can't quite make that out. Around the calendar, I'm just doing some small spirals to suggest shells and barnacles there, as though it's sitting on the seabed. Once this page is dry, we're on to my favourite bit, which is using a fine liner pen, this one is in brown, to go over and outline all the main features of the mermaid. She will now come to life before your very eyes. I hope you're enjoying this video. If you do, please leave me a comment. I really do welcome the feedback, and consider subscribing to the channel. As I've mentioned many a time, I do try to post a video on bullet journaling at least once a week, and there will be a few extra bits and bobs as I go along, but I do try to make it worth your while. Oh, and a thumbs up would be great too. Thank you. So I chose to use a brown fine liner pen for my mermaid rather than black because I thought the black would be too harsh, whereas the brown would blend in more seamlessly with the orangey brown and yellow tones that I used on the mermaid. Now I'm using the orange fine liner pen for all the fish and creatures. I'm using this aqua pen here and there, not too much, for the background, and then I'll go over the barnacles and shells around the calendar and pop in the calendar details. The great thing about these fine liners is that they're water soluble, so as you can see here I'm using a wet brush just to blend different parts of the pen work to make the background more seamless. I'm just using the aqua pen to go around my lettering, and the page is virtually complete. I hope you love the results as much as I do. So now I'm onto my monthly goals and tracker page. I chose to use this sticker of mine that matches the cover art page. It's of a seahorse with similar colours in the background. I don't waste anything. I use all the paint colours that are in the palette, mix them up, add white and cerulean. that will give me a really lovely sort of muted aqua colour. Now if you want to see more about this swatch of gouache paints that I use and how I create tertiary colours, I suggest you look at the video linked above, and that'll show you a lot more detail where I swatch out all the colours and go into a bit of colour theory. So now I've just added a bit of green paint to this mix to change the colours slightly. I mean, it's not much of a difference, and paint the next couple of pages with that colour. You'll see how I dry the pages. I hold the edges of them taut while I move the hairdryer along, a little bit like when you're doing sections of your hair. Now we're back to the monthly goals page. I have a tendency to look into 4 areas every month: my physical health, mental health, quality of life, and my art business. Then each month I write out some achievable goals for each area of my life. I now track only 4 things each month, really to do with exercise and low carb diets. So because I found that I just wasn't filling them in, to be honest with you. So it does leave me a little bit of room for artwork, which is where my Seahorse sticker is going to go. So this Seahorse sticker is taken from a watercolour painting that I did last year. I wanted to create a little background for my seahorse, so I used my highlighter pen to suggest some seaweed, then 2 coloured pencils in a sort of dark blue-green to outline the leaves and the veins of the seaweed. I used the darker pencil to draw in the pods of the kelp seaweed. I ended up really liking this effect with the coloured pencils because it was more subtle than using, say, fine liner pens, but you could still make it out. However, it didn't overwhelm the sticker, which was the main thing. I thought it tied together with the cover art page very well. I ended up really loving this page. So now we're on to the rest of my monthly setup. This page is one I do every month, which monitors my mental health. I measure my anxiety, depression and energy levels on a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is really bad and 1 is really good. Then I mark how I'm feeling for each day of the month. This page is more of a fun one, really, as a contrast to the chronic mental health monitoring page. This one is my viewing lists, where I write down all the TV shows, movies, books and music that I'm into for that month. So now I continue painting my pages for the next part of my monthly setup. I just added a bit of white and yellow to the green mix to create a sort of soft, sort of sage green. I've left the camera running, showing how I paint and dry all my pages, because on social media it's one of the questions I get asked most. So I just added a bit of French ultramarine to that green mix, and I'm painting the next 3 pages, which are going to be the first week of my May weekly spreads. So now we're on to the spread that deals with my budgets, especially for my Etsy shop. So it has my expenditure in the first column, and then the artwork that's in progress, listings and income. So it's just a 4-column spread, but it's very effective. So now we're on to our final set of pages, which is my first week of May weekly spread, and I have chosen to continue with the sea life theme, and these are a set of paper stickers this time that are actually in my shop. I only put them on this week, and I chosen to put 3 on a page for each day of the week. They all feature my own illustrations, and some of them are very ornate, like the seahorse that you can see there. I'm very fond of them and I'm so proud to be able to share them with you in this video. As you can see, the layout is incredibly simple, but look how beautiful it looks. Each week I need a tasks list, and I also leave a section for notes on the week. I always do that because it helps me go into the subsequent week sort of knowing where I am. And that pretty much finishes my weekly spread. It was so quick and easy to do, but as I've said, it really looks stunning and I can't wait to use it. You'll find a link to my shop in the description below if you want to take a closer look at all my merch. This is the other set of stickers I have based on songbirds, which you can also find in the shop. So we're just doing a flick through now of our May monthly setup. I hope you found this video instructive and useful, as well as showing lots of eye candy, and hopefully it'll prove inspiring to you. Don't forget to like, comment or subscribe if you are fond of this video, and I look forward to seeing you next week with another in the series of my Mermaid collection. Bye for now!